It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Prime Minister chairs an emergency COBRA meeting as tensions continue to rise in the Middle East. Sir Keir Starmer meets senior officials and ministers to discuss a series of potential scenarios as President Trump weighs up whether to join Israel's conflict with Iran. Also ahead, delays on the line again. HS2 is branded an appalling mess as the government confirms it won't now be completed until after 2033, following a series of missed deadlines and rising costs. Plus, a British woman dies after contracting rabies following contact with a stray dog while on holiday in Morocco. And as temperatures soar across the country, we'll find out why our summers could be about to get even hotter. All that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. Well, we begin this evening with escalating tensions in the Middle East. Israel and Iran continuing to attack each other after 6 days of strikes. Sir Keir Starmer has been chairing an emergency COBRA meeting in Downing Street today. Amid concerns, the US is considering entering the conflict. Well, the Prime Minister has urged de-escalation in recent days, but earlier, President Donald Trump refused to rule out American strikes on targets in Iran. Let's get more now from our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes. And Deborah, ahead of this emergency COBRA meeting, we were told that the Prime Minister would be discussing various potential scenarios here. What will we find out about what happened during that meeting?
Well, of course, the government is having to deal with what is potentially the biggest foreign policy decision for the Prime Minister since he took office, whether or not the UK decides to support the US if Donald Trump takes that decision to effectively join Israel's war against Iran. Now, I understand from a government insider that the UK government doesn't yet believe that the US has made a decision. It's not clear whether or not Donald Trump is going to strike Iran, and he's openly, when he's been speaking to reporters in the US, said that he may do it, he may not. So clearly, openly in public, he is being very unclear. But in private too, I think it's interesting that from the UK perspective, they don't know which way it's going to go. But of course, they're having to prepare for all sorts of scenarios. So if the US does join Israel in its war on Iran and does strike Iran, then it will likely want to use, for example, a base that the British have in the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia. You've heard a lot about it before because of issues around our ownership of that base or of that place. And we, at the moment, there are B-52 bombers based out there. There are also American jets. I don't know yet whether the B-2 stealth bombers are going to be put there. These are the aircraft that carry the bunker-busting bombs that the US would want to use if it were to go after, in particular, Iran's Fordow nuclear facility, which is built 80 or 90 metres underground in the side of a mountain. And so whether the UK is asked by the US if it can use this base to launch operations should that decision be taken, that is something that the British will have to consider. I also understand that the US might ask the UK if they can use the RAF base in Cyprus, RAF Akrotiri, to station American tankers. These are air refueling tankers that would be used to help jets that are flying so they can fly for longer. And again, it would be whether or not those tankers are used in any kind of military offensive. Now, the thing to remember, though, that Donald Trump has deployed an extraordinary amount of military force to the region. And at the moment, this is for a defensive purpose. So they want to put pressure on Iran, but also reassure allies. And that's the kind of thing that the UK is supportive of. And it's moved a lot of its own, admittedly much smaller military assets to the region too. I understand that there are now 14 Typhoon jets at RAF Akrotiri. They have been boosting the number that were already there. So it's now 14 in total. More aircraft could be put there too. And this is all designed to, if the conflict escalates and if the US does join and Iran then makes good on its warning that it would then target American bases in the region, potentially also British bases, then that would become very difficult for the UK and also the UK's allies. The UK government is closely aligned with a lot of different countries in that region. And so, again, that's why you've got military force moved forward. But the big decision for the UK is if the US decides to help Israel strike Iran, will the UK allow its military bases to be used as staging posts?
Deborah, thank you. Well, as attacks in the Middle East continue to intensify, communication with those inside Iran is getting more and more difficult. Here in the UK, there's growing concern amongst the Iranian community about family members caught up in this conflict. Our communities correspondent Lisa Holland has more.
These are videos shared with Sky News from people under Israeli bombardment inside Iran. They've painted a picture of fear and uncertainty. Communication is now incredibly difficult and people are afraid to talk to Western journalists. But we managed to establish Zoom contact with a member of a group of anti-regime activists in the capital, Tehran. We've changed his voice to protect his identity.
I can hear the sounds from my living room, from moment to moment, because I'm in the center of Tehran. I've experienced the sound of explosions and fires. I've seen it with my own eyes. People are getting panicked and they're helping each other.
With a near total internet blackout in Iran, British Iranians in the UK, like Amir and Atiye, are struggling to get in touch with friends and family.
Yeah, that's not working.
As we film, after several attempts, Amir gets through to his friend, who we're calling Ali. Can you put him on speaker?
Yeah, sure.
Ali has agreed for us to use his voice.
My wife is in a hospital, and I have to go there all the time. I don't have any view. I don't know how can I handle that.
Ali shared pictures with us that he'd filmed of huge petrol queues. He spoke to us from the eastern city of Mashhad.
This is the problem I have right now, and I'm looking for gas. All the people fear and have a problem to prepare money to buy anything. The bank is closed. I'm really angry. We are stuck in the middle of war between our government and Israel.
But with America threatening to join the conflict, the activist we spoke to in Tehran told us the Iranian government is still strong.
At the moment, there is high security inside Tehran, and the regime is still able to silence people. So that's why you're not seeing those people who are against the Islamic Republic. They're not coming out, because if they come out, they will die.
Are you afraid of American intervention in this conflict?
Not at all, because the Americans, we believe, are not going to fight with the people. They are fighting with the Islamic Republic. So that's why we're not afraid.
Communication with Iran is getting worse by the day. Activists say this could be a critical moment in Iranian history. Lisa Holland, Sky News.
A British woman has died after contracting rabies following contact with a stray dog while on holiday in Morocco. Yvonne Ford travelled to the North African country back in February, but she only became ill a couple of weeks ago. Her family say they are still processing their unimaginable loss, but were speaking up in the hope of preventing something similar from happening to others. Well, Sky's Oliver Whitfield-Miocic is here with me now. Oliver, this is a shocking case. Many people will be alarmed. Tell me what happened. We understand she came into contact with a dog, but what more details?
So this was 4 months ago, back in February.
Yeah.
Yvonne Ford is in Morocco, and her family say a stray puppy, slightly grazes her skin. And at the time, she didn't really think much more about it. She certainly didn't think it was going to cause any sort of health issues.
Yeah.
And then about 2 weeks ago, she started off having a headache, and then she started developing more and more serious symptoms to the point where She couldn't speak, she couldn't breathe, she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk. And this is the thing with rabies, is that once you have a cut or a scratch from an animal, such as a cat or a dog or a fox or a bat, if you wash the wound quite quickly, if you get a shot by a doctor, it can be treated quite easily. But if you leave it, that's when it becomes dangerous.
It is alarming. You don't hear about a death from rabies. Well, I don't think I've ever reported on one. It is a very small risk, and that's something important to stress to the public.
Yeah, if you think about how many millions of people go on holiday to escape the terrible British weather that we have here every year, that's tens of millions of people. Over the past 24 years, only 6 people have been reported to have caught rabies from animals abroad. Now, the UK Health Security Agency does classify a number of countries, including Morocco, as having a high risk. But the majority of the European Union doesn't really have that much of a rabies risk. You're really limited to certain countries in Africa, Asia, Central and South America. It's a very small risk, but you do have to take it quite seriously.
OK, Oliver, thank you very much. I'm going to discuss this in a bit more detail now. Dr Bobby Ahmed joins us, a doctor of travel medicine specialising in rabies. Dr Ahmed, good of you to come on to the UK tonight to talk to us about this. I mean, this is just an awful case. I think we should probably go back to the beginning and explain what rabies is.
Yes, thank you for having me on. I wanted to start by offering my deepest condolences to the family of the individual affected. But rabies is a very serious and very nasty viral infection that is transmitted by bites, scratches, and sometimes even licks by usually warm-blooded animals, but mainly dogs, sometimes monkeys and cats, even foxes. So it's a very serious viral infection transmitted by contact with an infected animal.
Serious but rare. Obviously, you operate in travel vaccines and travel medicine and offering this kind of advice. And, you know, oh, gosh, I'm casting my mind back to when I was travelling when I was younger and, you know, whether there was a rabies vaccination. I seem to sort of remember some talk about it. Is it only for the countries where rabies is prevalent? And how many people take that up out of interest? Because, you know, you don't hear of many cases. As Oliver was just saying, you know, only 6 have been reported in recent years.
Yes, but Oliver's mentioning the number of people that unfortunately passed away. But I think a more important consideration is the number of people that actually received post-exposure treatment, because in the UK last year, there were thought to be somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 people that needed the post-exposure treatment. So they didn't pass away, but wow, they received the actual treatment, which may have saved their lives.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge number, actually. And in terms of a lot of people, when they think about rabies and animals abroad, think of a bite. But you were talking there, like, even a lick from an animal,
I think,
can put you at risk.
The exposure that is of particular concern is the scratch, because if you're bitten, you're more likely to actually end up in a medical facility. But if you're scratched, you could kind of think, oh, well, I don't think it's a significant thing, and end up going home. So unfortunately, I did read that the lady that sadly passed away on this occasion, I think she'd been scratched as well. Yeah. Yeah.
What should people do if this happens to them abroad? Because we are a nation of animal lovers, and we do tend to go to countries where they don't love animals as much, as there are many on the street. Many tourists tend to feed them or try to have some kind of contact with them. Yeah. If you are scratched and you haven't had the vaccination, what's your immediate course of action? Because, you know, as you said there, Yvonne, when she came home, it was sometime after her return to the UK that she actually started feeling unwell.
Yes, so the incubation period for rabies is actually quite long. It's normally somewhere between 1 month and 3 months, wow, somewhere between 4 and 12 weeks, and that's what happened in this case. But really, immediately, well, if you're aware that there actually is a risk from a scratch, what you should really do, or a bite, is you should really get some running water and try and wash and irrigate the area that you've been that's exposed, and ideally with some soap and water. But it needs to be really for at least 15 to 20 minutes. And I think the problem is that sometimes people wash it for, you know, 20 or 30 seconds and think that's enough, but it needs to be quite a prolonged period of washing. And then really, as soon as you've done that, you should be seeking urgent help as soon as possible.
Dr. Bobby Ahmed, really good of you to come on to the UK tonight to talk to us about this. Obviously, as you said, and I echo that sentiment, our thoughts very much with the family of Yvonne Ford. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
I just want to take you to the White House now. President Trump has just been speaking about those escalating tensions in the Middle East. Let's bring you up to date with what he has said.
So, do you have any questions, please?
Do you know the latest on the evacuations out of Israel, Mr. President? Have
No.
you been updated on that?
No, we're having a meeting in an hour. We have a meeting downstairs in 1 hour, yeah.
Mr. President, on Iran, if regime change does happen there, if the regime falls, do you have a plan for what you think would happen
I
there?
have a plan for everything, but we'll see what happens. We've got a ways to go. They should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days we talked about it, and in the end they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House. So we'll see. I may do that, but it's a shame it could have been done the easy way.
Do you think the regime there could fall?
Sure, anything could happen, right? Of that, sure, that could happen. Yeah,
Mr.
please.
President, the Senate Judiciary Committee is holding a hearing on who exactly was running the White House under Joe Biden. Who do you think that was?
I think the auto pen ran the White House. We have an auto pen president before me. I think it's one of the greatest scandals in the history of this country, one of the biggest scandals. He wasn't making a decision. He was never for open borders where people came in from all over the world, from prisons and gangs and drug dealers and all of that, the mentally insane. He was never for that. He was never for open borders, and he was never for, he was never for transgender for everybody, or men playing in women's sports. He was never for that. Have you ever had women? Could a woman make your team, fellas? Tell me. You think? You're being nice. What do you think? Think a woman could make the team? General managers, what do you think?
Difficult. We have a very good women's team, though.
You do have, right? Yeah. But they should be playing with women, right? It's one of those things. One of those things. See, they're very diplomatic.
As you're making your decision on Iran, obviously there's been a change from when you were pursuing a diplomatic negotiation.
Yeah.
Now you seem very open to the idea of potentially taking U.S. action. Obviously, you're not going to tell us that. Can you walk us through what contributed to that change, how you got to where you are in making your decision now?
Well, I think it started the first night. I mean, that first night was devastating. And it really knocked the one side off, as you know. It was a devastating evening, day. And it's pretty much proceeded that way. I have a meeting in the war room in a little while, situation room, as some people call it. So we're going to meet, we're going to see. We're in the midst of it's a terrible thing. I hate to see it. I hate to see all that death, so much death and destruction. But death primarily is what I hate to see.
Does that mean you haven't made...
President Donald Trump speaking in the White House a little earlier, more on events in the Middle East coming up at 9 o'clock in the world with Yalda Hakim. Stay with us for that. In the meantime, the Royal College of Psychiatrists has told Sky News they have several concerns ahead of the Assisted Dying Bill's final Commons vote this Friday. The college has been speaking to our health correspondent Ashish Joshi, who joins me now in the studio. Ashish, the college has for some time now voiced concerns about the bill that comes back to the House of Commons on Friday. What have they been telling you?
The Royal College of Psychiatrists was the first Royal College to publicly say it didn't have confidence in the bill in its current state. They are neutral, as almost all Royal Colleges are. And they have a broad church of members, some who believe in assisted dying, others who don't. But the Royal College has said, in its current form, it cannot support the bill. And it wants MPs to block the bill. It says there isn't enough scrutiny. They're concerned about safeguarding. They're concerned about patient safety. They're concerned about workforce issues. But essentially what it boils down to is the role of the psychiatrist in treating a patient potentially with depression or other mental health conditions and how they fit into the system. They say they just don't know enough. Remember, Sarah-Jane, the panel of experts that would decide whether a patient who wanted an assisted death, whether they were going to get one. That panel would consist of doctors, a legal expert, a social worker, and a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrists say, this is just not the way we work. We would not make a remote assessment without meeting a patient. So they have so many questions. The Mental Health Act, mental capacity, all of these, and you'll hear in that interview that we're about to play, the unknowns. There are just far too many. This is what Dr. Annabel Price, the lead for assisted dying at the Royal College of Psychiatrists, said to me.
If this bill, as it stands, proceeds, through the rest of the parliamentary process, we as psychiatrists are left in a situation where there are so many unknowns about what is expected of us, about what patients can expect, and about the safety of the process. We will continue to engage, and I've highlighted some areas that there may be opportunities for reconsideration at further points in the bill. But yes, I approach this professionally with trepidation.
Do you think your concerns have been addressed?
They haven't been adequately addressed, and that we have issued another statement publicly just this week because we think that they need to be carefully considered by parliamentarians before the vote on Friday. I have never made an evaluation of somebody's mental state that I haven't met. What psychiatrists are trained to do is the assessment and treatment of mental illness. The panel role is really to check what the two other doctors have done and whether that patient meets the eligibility criteria. And if they do, then they must be granted assisted dying. That doesn't really give room to identify where meeting an unmet need, like depression, for example, but there are lots of things that may be unmet, social difficulties, untreated pain and other physical symptoms, where that person might no longer want to die. And it doesn't really give room for a psychiatrist to do what they're trained to do and where their expertise lies.
Dr. Annabel Price there. Ashish, it's worth reminding us what is going to happen on Friday. Obviously, there is the vote. What then happens after that if this bill is passed, if it isn't passed?
Well, if it passes, it carries on through the parliamentary process up to the House of Lords, and that's more or less a given. Of course, things could happen in the Lords, which they send it back. But it's unlikely. If it passes on Friday, then this is likely to become legislation law, which will be introduced into the country in 4 years' time. If it doesn't pass, well, they would need to overturn that majority of 55 MPs. We know some MPs have changed their mind already. The assisted dying supporters are quietly confident they have the numbers to get it through, but it could just come down to about 25 or 30 votes, and that's why Royal Colleges are speaking out now to the MPs who are about to vote on Friday.
OK, Ashish, thank you. We'll be following that vote closely here on Sky News, of course, on Friday. Thank you, Ashish. Right, let's return to the White House. We can go there live now. Donald Trump still taking questions from journalists talking about the Middle East.
A little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is a nice guy. I mean, he's been with me for a long time. I'd say once the race was over, he's been with me ever since, right? But very simple. If they think that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me. But nobody thinks it's okay. People that don't want, I don't want to fight either. I'm not looking to fight. But if it's a choice between fighting and them having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do. Maybe we won't have to fight. Don't forget, we haven't been fighting. We add a certain amount of genius to everything, but we haven't been fighting at all. Israel's done a very good job of that. But we'll see what happens. The bottom line is they can't have nuclear. And if I can't imagine that Ted Cruz said it's okay for Iran to have nuclear, including Tucker. I don't think Tucker says it's okay. The problem is then they get themselves into a thing. They don't want them to have nuclear, but then they say, well, we don't want to fight. Well, you're going to have to make a choice because it's possible that you're going to have to fight for them not to have nuclear. And it's interesting because I did ask Tucker, I said, well, are you okay with nuclear weapons being in the hands of Iran? And he sort of didn't like that. He didn't want to really, but he sort of didn't like that. And I said, well, if it's okay with you, then you and I do have a difference. But it's really not okay with him. Therefore, you may have to fight, and maybe it'll end, and maybe it'll end very quickly. But there's no way that you can allow, whether you have to fight or not, you can allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, because the entire world will blow up. I'm not going to let that happen.
Mr. President, you had a bit of a row with President Emmanuel Macron of France the other day at the G7, it sounded like.
He's a nice guy. Look, he said I was going back home to make a ceasefire. Not a ceasefire. We're long beyond ceasefire. And I said, why do you say that? Why would you say ceasefire? It's a bad term to use. Because a ceasefire means like everything's going swimmingly, we'll take a little time off. It's not. We're not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking for a total, complete victory. Again, you know what the victory is. No nuclear weapon.
Mr. President.
So I thought it was a very badly worded statement by him, and obviously I let him know that.
On the southern border, you've had record low numbers for the month of May, 95 apprehensions, 0 releases, compared to that of the previous administration exactly a year ago, more than 60,000 releases. What do you attribute that success to?
I like you. Who are you with?
Turning Point USA, sir.
Well, they're very good. Turning Point. Charlie, very good. That's what I call a good question, fellas. 1 out of 10, John. 1 out of 10, but that's a really good question. No, we had record good numbers on the border. And people are coming in, but they have to come in legally. Like some of these guys behind me, they have to come in legally. And if they come in legally, we want them. They have to say they love America, they love our country. And if they can't say that, we don't want them. Thank you very much. Very nice. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks. Pulitzer Prize. Fella, hey, Doug, take a good picture. Absolutely. Pulitzer Prize winner. New York Times Pulitzer Prize. The Times is the bad part.
Donald Trump speaking in the White House. Let's join David Blevins, who was following what the president had to say. He is in Washington. And David, the president making some more comments about Iran. What did we learn?
Yeah, small steps forward, I think, from where we were this morning when he said he may or may not decide to launch US airstrikes against Iran. The president confirming that there will be another meeting, presumably of his National Security Council, in what he described as the war room. That's the Situation Room of the White House within the next hour. He said he has ideas about what to do, but likes to make a decision at the very last second. He also went on to explain that only the United States has the capability to bomb the underground nuclear facility in Iran. He said they'd been asked about that, but he hadn't made a call on it just yet. I think perhaps the most interesting part of the comments we've heard in the last few minutes were in relation to the battle going on within his own base. There are some, of course, who are interventionists, some isolationist, some are adamant that there should be no more American troops involved in foreign wars. Others believe that they must support Israel, must take action to prevent Iran having a nuclear bomb. The president said if they want to oppose me, then they can do that, but it's very simple. He said you can't have it both ways. He said you have to say if you want Iran to be rid of its nuclear weapons, then you have to create space possibly for America to take action. So he's coming close there to saying he may be about to do the one thing he promised not to do the whole way through his election campaign, and that was to involve the United States in another war on foreign soil.
David, thank you. David Blevins with the update there from Washington. More to come on The World from 9 o'clock with Yalda Hakim. Still to come here on the UK Tonight after the break. The Transport Secretary today announced yet more delays to the HS2 high-speed rail project. We'll be discussing that next. Now, the government announced today that the high-speed rail network HS2 cannot be completed on its current schedule or budget, and in fact is going to be delayed beyond 2033. The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, said there has been a litany of failure in the project, but confirmed that phase 1 from London to Birmingham will go ahead. Earlier, we got this reaction to the latest delay from people in Birmingham.
These kids up north want their money there. They want these things to happen. I'm not just talking about Manchester, I'm talking about further on. You know what I mean? Birmingham has always been second city and it's proven itself worthwhile and it should have more.
Hate to be such a pessimist, but I can't see when all the desperate need, you see people with the housing problems and all the other stuff that's going on in Birmingham, homelessness, etc., etc. I really can't see the point.
Because I did work on the rail, I know the capacity is required because it's just delay after delay on the current infrastructure, so yeah, definitely required.
I mean, this has been an eyesore for a really, really long time now. We work at the uni that's just over the road from it, and it's just getting more and more built up, but never progressing it to the point where you think, yeah, it's going to be good. And who's going to be able to afford it anyway?
Well, joining me now, Chevy Hart, Transport Manager of Vaughan Plant Haulage, and Brent Poland, spokesperson for the Stop HS2 campaign. This news today, gentlemen, largely seen as, shall we say, disappointing news. However, Chevy, I'd be interested to talk to you because business is doing quite well out of HS2 in terms of, you know, recruitment and construction, haulage as you're in. So did this delay actually benefit you and those industries and sectors and businesses involved in the project?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we know the project's going past 2033 now. What date after that, we don't know. We will continue to work on there. As we're told, we're contracted by some of the major contractors on the HS2. So, yeah, of course, it's a positive. It keeps us in work, keeps a lot of other people in work, such as our drivers, office staff, and all the other local businesses in the area, such as cafes, coffee shops and restaurants. I think it's good for all around local business, especially ourselves.
So while this government says, look, we're just pausing this project for the moment until we get a handle on the timescale and, importantly, the budget, work will still continue for you. Money will still be spent on paying you to do work towards the project.
If they pause it, then work pauses on site. Then obviously we won't be working on there. But if obviously delays continue and work needs to be done, then yeah, we'll step up to it and our lorries will be on site as usual.
Yeah, I was reading the Construction Inquirer earlier on, industry magazine that I've not read before, but it was talking about, you know, record growth in some sectors and industries because of HS2 and good profits as well. So look, it is good for some people in terms of bringing money into areas and businesses. Brent Poland from Stop HS2 campaign, what was your reaction when you heard about yet another delay and spiralling costs? We've been here before, haven't we?
Well, here's the thing. I'm glad that some people are profiting from the government public works scheme. It's great to see that because it's like they've won the lottery and we've paid for their ticket. Yeah. And somebody who works in the public sector.
It's not their fault, to be fair. Let's just make that clear. You know, it's the government that's mismanaging funds and. Well,
it is the government's mismanaged, but true. But there has been monumental mismanagement also of fraud. Whistleblowers have blown the whistle in HS2, bad practice. If you are looking at how to run an infrastructure project, HS2 is now basically the chapter 1 of how not to do infrastructure. Yeah. And yes, we've been here before. And I don't buy the economic argument that HS2 is massively beneficial because we could be spending that money so much better across the rail network, electrification. We could be doing so much better during austerity, COVID and cost of living crisis. Somehow HS2 has lasted when cuts have been made across all sectors. It's abhorrent, it's disgusting, and I think it's time for it to literally be stopped and the money to be reappropriated into appropriate schemes which deliver exactly what they're supposed to deliver, which is grind up development from the bottom and having ordinary people benefit because ordinary people have paid for it. And yet they've seen all their services cut. And I think that's the problem. It's not delivered. We knew it wasn't delivered. So vindication doesn't even come close for those of us who've been saying all along HS2 was an absolute disaster.
Yeah, I should point out as well, the Transport Secretary, when talking about the costs that are completely out of control and the time frame as well. There's, fraud claims within the supply chain, and she said that, that was going to be looked at as well during this pause. I mean, Chevy is our man on the front line of this, as it were. You're seeing the work that's going on. It's between London and Birmingham, obviously the north of the country, all of that scrapped, and construction of a new station at Euston as well. What have you seen in terms of progress? Tell us what's been going on over the last few years.
Well, I mean, we've been on the project since day one.
Remind us when that was, because it was so long ago, I can't actually remember the date off the top of my head.
I'd say it must be 3 or 4 years ago. Couldn't tell you the date off my top of my head, but definitely 3 or 4 years ago. And from day one, we haven't stopped. We've had lorries in and out of the project through London, Houston, all the way up to Birmingham. And I can say every time we've had lorries there, there's been significant progress every time we've gone on there. I've been on there personally for site visits. My colleagues have been on there for site visits. And yeah, it's not like people are sitting around with their tools and just having a cup of coffee and having a chat. There's work being done. This is a big project. We have to remember that. This ain't going to be done in a day. There will be delays. And you have to appreciate that. We personally can't just do it. There's a lot of people involved in that. There's a lot of pressure on people. But I can personally say that the project seems to be running as smooth as it can be. I can understand there's a lot of people under pressure. So from my eyes, we've had lorries there every day and everyone's been working to their full potential.
Yeah, I mean, the workers on the ground are putting the work in, but somewhere along the way, in between, the government overseeing it and you guys on the front line, somewhere in the middle of that, billions have been wasted, according to the Transport Secretary. She's now pausing it to find out how on earth the government can get a hold on this. Brent, in terms of the benefits of HS2, I mean, we think it's going to be completed. Some people you may talk to will go, this will never get done. This will never get done. But in terms of the benefits to the area that you represent, for example, the Midlands, what are they in your eyes?
Well, by the time they're delivered, it will be obsolete. When HS2 was fully planned, started to plan in 2009, the internet was coming online. Artificial intelligence is happening, working from home, COVID. So it's an obsolete piece of technology for a small country. The way it was organized and planned was ill-conceived. It didn't have to be 250 miles per hour. It didn't have to be so fast. It didn't have to be straight. The plan was flawed. The concept was flawed. And all that's happened since is successive governments. And I don't buy what Haile Alexander said today about, let's put it down to 14 years of Tory mismanagement. This was a Labour plan. It was picked up and had cross-party support. And the political establishment of Westminster failed. And I will say as well, the media have also failed, because those of us who've been calling out HS2 were up against huge lobby, huge industry, which was all for HS2. And the silent small groups of individuals like us, pockets of resistance, including environmentalists, were shut down, and we've been vindicated. So what benefits are there? Unfortunately, those benefits, if they're ever to be had, would be 2000 and whatever, take a number. And if you talk environmental benefits...
2033 is the current running estimate. In fact, the Transport Secretary says after 2033, and that, goes on for...
I think we'll not be around for that. And unfortunately, when you're talking things like the climate crisis, because they keep saying it's an environmental, one of the things HS2 has constantly done is change its rationale, moved on to capacity. Then it was north-south, and it's just like a hydra. It just keeps, you chop a HS2 head off and another two grow back, and it's all based on sand, based on no logic, not based on economic logic, environmental logic, or social logic. And I'm sorry, it comes down to the fact of the matter is certain people who are very powerful individuals wanted something built and they pushed it through. There's a democratic problem at the heart of HS2 because people have been ignored on this. It's another example of ordinary people being ignored. We didn't ask for it, we didn't demand it. And all throughout, all of those cuts that we've seen, somehow HS2 has survived. So I've only seen the negative side of it. And in fact, in my community, it's currently still blighted and paused.
Do you think the government's too far in now to pull the plug on it? This is a new government, there's a pause. Are they too far in? Too much money has been spent. They cannot turn around to the public and go, do you know what? Let's just draw a line under it. It's not going to work.
Well, aren't U-turns the current modus operandi at the moment?
I mean, this would be a massive one.
Well, it's the right thing to do. And what did Boris Johnson say? The best way out of a hole is to keep digging. No, it's not. And it never was. And unfortunately, sometimes you just got to cut your losses and say, stop. And all of those construction industries, all those jobs can be sent into doing what we should be doing, building our infrastructure, our defence infrastructure, our schools, our hospitals, our water systems. We're going to have droughts in the summer because we've not got enough reservoirs. There's so much more could be done in 14 years and hundreds of billions of pounds that could probably be spent so much better. And all those workers, all of that concrete, all that steel could have been used in something actually we could use, something we use now. Not hypothetically, potentially in 2040, 50, 60, 70 or whatever.
Listen, Brent Polar, Midland spokesperson for Stop HS2 campaign, and Chevy Hart, transport manager of Vaughan Plant Haulage, a company that is working with the HS2 project. Thank you for your time. There's lots more of this story to run, 2033 and beyond. Be interesting to see where us three are come 2033 and beyond. Never mind HS2, that just puts into context, doesn't it, how long all of this is taking. Gentlemen, really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
A member of the Irish rap group Kneecap has appeared in court in London today after being charged with a terror offence. Liam O'Hanna is accused of displaying a flag in support of Hezbollah, a prescribed terrorist organisation in the UK. It happened at a gig last year. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer has this report.
More like a mosh pit than a magistrate's court. As gigs go, rappers Kneecap certainly hadn't set out to appear here. Struggling to get through the crowds arriving alongside his bandmates, frontman Makara, summoned after being charged with a terror offence for allegedly displaying a flag in support of Hezbollah at a gig last year, whilst saying "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah." Provocation and humour has consistently been a part of their music, while they've built a following for their hedonistic anti-establishment tracks. They've also attracted critics who argue some of the things they've reportedly said go too far. From Northern Ireland, their USP being that they rap in Irish. His defence lawyers accepting the offer of an Irish interpreter going forward, should one be available. Presenting themselves as a voice of the oppressed, on and off stage, they've been vocally opposed to Israel's military action in Gaza. Their outspoken stance proving polarising, prompting a surge in streaming for their songs and at the same time resulting in several of their gigs being cancelled, which has played into the narrative from some fans who feel the band is being silenced for speaking out.
When so much is being said about Kneecap on social media, online you'll find those who are suspicious the broadcasters are saying so little. But in reality, reporting restrictions, which kicked in as soon as the charges were brought, have meant that journalists have been massively limited in what we can and can't say about this to prevent contempt of court.
A stage with music and a brief altercation. This counter-protester with an Israeli flag seemingly removed for his own safety. While things were noisy outside, there was little opportunity inside for the band's frontman to speak, other than to confirm his real name as Liam O'Hanna. Magistrates pushing the case on to another hearing, much to the band's frustration.
Oppression fears freedom of expression, but the reality is Kneecap will stand up for freedom of expression. They will defend their rights, not only the rights of them, but the rights of artists and people all around the world.
Leaving to a familiar sound, this exit a little more serious than their usual concert departures. Kneecap's frontman now required for a compulsory encore in court in August. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
So to come here on the UK Tonight, the country's favourite topic, the weather. I'm going to speak to a meteorologist as temperatures continue to rise this week. And how costly would this red card be for Manchester City at the Club World Cup?
Paris reverberated to the sights, sounds and smells of conflict.
There's a focal point to all this anger, and that is Emmanuel Macron.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels.
There are dozens of people desperately clambering to get onto that boat. It is a chaotic scene, but it's being watched by dozens of French police officers on the beach.
I've reported on migration across Europe, close up on the ground, understanding that sense of desperation and meeting the criminal gangs behind it.
This old fishing boat set off from the Libyan port of Tobruk. There were 606 people who were on board. So we've been distributing life jackets to all the people on board this boat, and now the first person is coming on board.
This is the ugly side of Italian football.
In Italy, everything is really organised. Football's problems with hooliganism, racism were just dormant, and now they're back and they're getting worse. We cover so many countries, languages and cultures and work hard to gain trust to bring you the full story first.
Help is slowly reaching these places.
It's not just homes, but whole streets like this one that have been reduced to rubble and dust.
This is a picture of destruction.
Everywhere you look in this mountaintop community, there is absolute devastation.
These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Getting the chance to tell people's stories, it's a privilege.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, welcome back. Teddy's here with a sport. Stick around after the sport because we're going to find out why our summers are about to get even hotter. I mean, we're talking like over 40 degrees.
Oh, okay, yeah, I thought it was good.
I mean, no. I mean, I could barely cope in 27-degree heat today.
Yeah.
Over 40, I can't even fathom what that would feel like. But I'll talk to the meteorologist about that.
I grew up apart in the Caribbean, so I quite like it. But
oh, really? Did it get up to 40 degrees there?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, my word. OK, well, you're well prepped. I don't think I am as a ginger. Right, let's talk about this Chelsea winger, Mudryk, facing a ban from football for up to 4 years. And this is all to do with anti-doping.
Yes.
It's worth reminding us of the background to this, because this has been going on since December.
Since November, Mudryk, 24-year-old Ukrainian winger signed by Chelsea 2.5 years ago. In December, provisionally suspended. He's been training at home, a fitness programme from the club, not allowed to go to the training ground at Cobham, but the Football Association confirming today that he has been charged with doping violations. The substance, we believe, is called meldonium. The player says that he never intentionally took it, that he believes his sample was contaminated. He took one from UK anti-doping in this country in August. This happened when he was not on Chelsea duty around November time. And the one he obviously passed in August, he says nothing changed in his diet in that period. He is obviously under legal instruction now, has employed the lawyer that Paul Pogba used, former Manchester United and Juventus midfielder, who's currently looking for a club after his 4-year suspension, because that is the maximum amount Mudryk is facing in terms of suspension from the sport. Pogba had that reduced to 18 months on appeal at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So we'll see where it goes with Mudryk. But yeah, a bright young talent. Had a difficult start, just 5 goals and 53 appearances at Chelsea, 8.5-year contract. But obviously at the moment, he's sitting at home and doing that fitness programme, and is understood, or was understood to be in the autumn at least, very devastated. We've asked Chelsea for further comment on this. We do understand they've been supporting him with mental health support as much as they can, but he's not, as it currently stands, allowed to practice his trade and go and train or obviously play. Could be a long way. We'll keep across it with Mudryk as well, 24 years of age, as we say. That's the situation regarding the Chelsea and Ukraine winger. Up next, I have news from the Club World Cup, some action.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Andrea, 2 years on from your departure from Leeds United, how pleased are you to see them back in the Premier League?
I'm very happy. As a fan of Leeds, as ex-chairman, I'm very, very glad for the fans that they are finally back in where they belong, the Premier League. And it is a big release for me because honestly, I had a very traumatic and difficult exit, and finally I feel now that the destiny adjusted everything, and I can come back to Leeds soon.
Do you still speak to Parag Marathe and the ownership group?
Yes. I speak to him normally a couple of times every month, and we stay in touch during the season. We comment about Leeds, we comment about other football trends, but particularly about Leeds. And we just spoke recently this week when he was in Leeds, but also he was busy in Rangers for looking at new opportunity. I think Parag and the guys involved supporting him and the new management will have the credibility and the experience, they know how to take it to the next level. So they can take back the route and the direction to bring back Leeds as a, I hope, top club and back to Europe one day.
How difficult will it be for Leeds, that jump from the Championship back to the Premier League, because you've done it, and with success in that first season under Bielsa, Leeds finished 9th.
The gap between the Premier League clubs and the newly promoted club is getting bigger and bigger. In the last 2 seasons, basically all the club promoted bounced back to the Championship. So this showed that the category.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, I'm sure it won't have escaped your notice. It is hot. Yellow health warnings have been issued for most of England. Temperatures forecast to hit highs of 33 degrees this weekend. But scientists are predicting that summers could get even hotter in coming years, all because of climate change. There's a warning that temperatures could eventually exceed 40 degrees here in the UK. Well, I'm joined now by meteorologist at Weather Change, Gemma Plum. Gemma, hello. First of all, how have you fared in the heat today?
Hello. It's been a struggle. I'm not the greatest in the heat, so I've been trying to cool down as best I can, but by just staying indoors, really.
Oh, yeah, I've done everything you shouldn't do. I even got on the tube today in this heat, and we know how hot that can be in London on a really hot day. Right, I'm really interested in scientists saying that in the coming years, in our lifetime, in the UK, we could get as high as 40 degrees. What does that even feel like?
Well, back in July 2022, we recorded 40 degrees for the first time in the UK. And
where was that?
I don't know if people remembering that. It was so hot outside. It was like being outside and having it was a bit windy as well. It was like a hairdryer like blowing at you. It was quite intense. So we've already seen those temperatures, but the fact that we could see them happening more often is worrying. I mean, climate change is making heat waves more intense, more frequent, more likely. The Met Office released a study today that said that the chances of temperatures in the UK exceeding 40 degrees is now over 20 times more likely than it was in 1960s. So we are seeing these hot spells becoming more frequent and intense and more likely as well.
What are we looking at over well, not just the next few days, because I think this weekend is going to be the peak, isn't it? 33 degrees before it starts to fall away. But for the summer ahead?
It does look as though I did see something that said that it was going to be a hotter than average summer. So even though, as you say, the heat that we've got at the moment is likely to last a few days, it is likely that we are going to see more of these hot spells as we go through the summer. And potentially we could see temperatures higher than what we're going to see over the next few days. And we know that the temperatures that are forecast through the rest of this week, they have been made more likely by climate change. We have a tool that can show us how the temperatures on a specific day have been influenced by climate change, and they show us that the temperatures for the UK have been made at least 3 to 5 times more likely over the next few days by climate change.
Some people like the heat, some people don't. For many people, it depends on what you're doing. If you're at work in an air-conditioned office, it's OK. If you're on public transport, not so much. What are your top tips on sort of coping with the heat? Because you know, while it might be uncomfortable for some of us, it's dangerous for others, the most vulnerable.
It is. I think if you do have to travel on the tube, and I have done that, travelling in the tube when it's so hot. If
Central Line was hot today. It was red for a reason.
I know. If you could go earlier in the day or maybe later in the evening. I know that's not ideal, but those times I found have been better travelling on the tube. And if you are travelling, remember to have a bottle of water with you as well. So it's staying hydrated. It's staying indoors during the peak times, the peak heat times, which is generally.
I heard you had to keep your windows closed during the day. I do the opposite. I fling them all open when it's hot.
No, don't do that. And I have tested this.
Oh, everyone in my ears going, no. How am I the only person that didn't know that?
No, so close your windows during the day because you're just letting hot air into the house. So don't do that. And also, if you've got a south-facing window in particular, a south-facing room, I've tried this and it does work. If you close the curtains, that helps as well because it stops the sunlight coming into the room and heating it up as well.
OK, and at night, fling all the windows open.
Yeah, in the morning, open the windows, get some fresh air in, and in the evenings, close them, because the overnight temperatures are another thing to mention. It's going to be very warm over the next few nights. For some, particularly in the southeast, Saturday night, the temperatures might not fall below 20 degrees Celsius, and that's at the end of the night. So if we think about when people are going to sleep, temperatures are going to be mid to high 20s still. So it's really hard, really tricky sleeping conditions during the overnight periods as well.
Oh, listen, Gemma, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Bracing for the hot weather that's going to continue. Gemma Plum, their meteorologist. We were talking so much, we've actually had to drop the weather, but I feel like we pretty much discussed it there. It is going to be hot. That's all from the UK tonight. Thanks so much, Gemma. Yalda's up next with The World. She will have the latest from the United States. Donald Trump has been speaking once again. We'll see you tomorrow.